we start with the NHL. A crazy trade deadline day, and you can certainly say the rebuild is on for the New York Rangers. The Blue Shirts say the biggest move of all for Monday afternoon as the house cleaning continued, sending Ryan McDonagh and JT Miller to Tampa Bay. The longtime Rangers captain, who has dealt with a slew of injuries in recent years, was traded a day after Rick Nash was sent to the Bruins.
It's a very difficult thing to do, Alan. It's a player that, you know, we view as a really special Ranger, who's captain of our team. He's here for a lot of good times and played a lot of good hockey for us. But at the same time, I would say, you know, it's exciting for us too, right? We're doing something, going young here. We're adding a lot of assets, and there's a lot of opportunity for players here as we move forward. So it hit on a lot of things that we wanted to accomplish, you know, as far as acquiring some picks, some high picks, and getting some young players that we've really liked for a while. So, you know, the ability to get Howden and Hayek and then get the picks, and Nemesnikov is a player we've liked for a while. So I think it hit on a lot of different things that we wanted to do as we move forward.
All right, so let's break it down for you. In exchange for McDonagh, the Rangers received Vladislav Nemesnikov, 2 prospects, a 2018 first-round draft pick, and a conditional second-rounder. So a lot of fresh faces soon to be on display at the Garden. Rangers beat writer Justin Tash broke down the moves on Daily News Live earlier today.
Just a little surprised at the exact return in this deal. I think McDonagh was certainly the Rangers' best asset, and while they got good prospects in return, it doesn't appear as if they got that elite-level, top-of-the-line prospect that I think they were hoping to get in a deal involving McDonagh. But like all these kind of trades, they're going to be tough to evaluate until you see these prospects fully develop. They're prospects for a reason. Howden and Hayek are both 2016 picks, and they're still really young, 20 years old and 19 years old, respectively. So just going to have to see how those guys do. But, you know, on the surface, it's perhaps a tad underwhelming, but, again, got to see where these guys go.
Time now for Double Take, and I'm joined by Mark Malusis and Sal Licata. We knew the Rangers were looking to sell off their veterans. Another big trade on Monday right at the deadline. What are your initial reactions to this move?
Yeah, Justine, I like what Gordon and Sather did. Number one is it's going to be a really good 2018 draft. They've got 3 first-round picks. They've got 2 second-rounders and 2 thirds. Now, Sal, it's difficult when you trade guys like Nash, right? And certainly Ryan McDonagh, JT Miller. Miller's a young kid, 24. He was drafted when he was 18 years of age by Glenn Sather at the time, and has been part of this organization. However, what they got back was they got a young center iceman who was a first-round pick by the Lightning, a young offensive-minded defenseman who was a second-round pick by Tampa Bay. They got a conditional second-round draft choice as well. That could be bumped up to a 1 should Tampa Bay win the Stanley Cup either this year or next year with McDonagh being under contract. I know it's a difficult pill to swallow to see all these veteran guys go out, but I think it's an understanding for the organization. They warned everybody this group was not winning the Stanley Cup. It's right to do what's best for this organization long-term. I think they did that.
Yeah, okay, so my initial reaction was that they got a lot back. This is how you would rebuild, okay? We don't like seeing guys like McDonagh get moved, obviously. I was a little surprised with JT Miller. I know him and Vigneault have obviously not had the best relationship there. Maybe that means Vigneault will be here long-term now. Who knows what that means for those two. But they give up McDonagh and Miller today. They've given up a lot before the deadline. Nash, as you mentioned, we know about Grabner and Holden. They got a ton back, Moose. So if you're going to do it, I like going all in. I know Lundqvist is a different story. He doesn't want to be moved. They're not going to trade him. But they did pretty much all they could do to acquire as much, whether it's youth with young players, prospects, picks. Now they have to obviously turn it around and hit on a lot of those draft picks and hope that a lot of these prospects pan out. But I just like the idea that if you're going to rebuild, you don't halfway. You don't trade 1 or 2 guys. You trade a bunch of them, and you try to get as much as an arsenal back as you possibly can with picks and young players, and the Rangers did that.
You kept hearing for the last couple of years that they want to get younger and faster, and now they really committed to it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the guys who left, though. For that group, it's really the end of the road. Is not winning a Stanley Cup a disappointment?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, listen, we both love Rick Nash as a player. And when he was brought here, he's supposed to be the guy that was going to be that finishing piece, right? Be a 50-plus goal scorer, a guy that was a high draft pick as an 18-year-old by the Columbus Blue Jackets. guys. Never really was that guy, Sal, here with the Rangers. Was productive for 6 years, but kind of underwhelmed at times. And I think when you look at this group, and now it's going to be highlighted by Henrik Lundqvist, who's an all-time great netminder, an all-time great Ranger, and his number will be up in the rafters one day at Madison Square Garden, for this group not to be able to finish it off. And I think you're going to look back at that Stanley Cup Finals run where they lost to the Los Angeles Kings and that had every opportunity to beat Jonathan Quick and the Kings in that series. That's going to be the series we're all going to look back on and say that was the time, that was the moment where everything was clicking, where they should have won a Stanley Cup and they didn't. The window started to close. They realized it, but it's a disappointing end to this era.
Yeah, I thought the year before that they lost to the Cup Finals, look, Quick is unbelievable, right? I knew they were going up against it with the Kings, who at that time I believe won their second in a row. The year before, where they lost to the Devils in the Eastern Conference Finals, I thought the Rangers were a better team than the Devils. I thought they would have had a better chance against the Kings that year, so that's disappointing. Nash, as you mentioned, disappointing. Look, he's a terrific player, but we thought he was going to be the final piece to the Stanley Cup puzzle. And you can go back over other guys, too, St. Louis or Brad Richards, for whatever reason, or McDonagh not staying healthy, and not to his fault, or Zuccarello getting banged up in the postseason. It just seems that they weren't able to ever put it all together for one Stanley Cup run. Overall, great run being in the postseason, going deep into the playoffs many consecutive years, but without that Stanley Cup, not being able to put it together for one run, that's certainly disappointing.
All right, well, Moose, you said it, end of an era. Appreciate you both, and you'll be back in a little bit.